I think the names are really irrelevant as long as it makes sense to you and whoever you teach it to. Like this, I'm gonna get some hate for this, but this is my biggest gripe with for instance, gyms like 10th Planet that have some really wacky nomenclature for some of their techniques. Is if I'm explaining to someone newer or maybe not super versed in how they describe things, what you're doing, and I'm using ridiculous names that don't make sense, it doesn't really tell the athlete what to do. But if I say get a like inverted headlock, like it, at least the name gives me some indication of what I should be looking to do. So things like an underhook. An underhook is a great name because I say get an underhook. Under and hook, figure it out. You might not do it perfect if you've never done an underhook before or heard what it's called, but you at least gives you an idea. I'm looking to get underneath something and hook it. Okay, well, we can figure it out. So I'm not too big on this has to be like the correct name for everything. I just if you're gonna name things, just make sure they make sense.
What about in competition though? If you yell out, go for an underhook, they're going to know, the guy's going to know what you want. But if you're in 10th Planet, I don't know what they call it, and it's some, smoke a joint or whatever, and they go for an underhook, that could confuse the competitor.
Sure, it could also confuse your own competitor
Yeah,
because
that's fair enough.
now I have to spend so much time not just teaching you the techniques, the concepts, and how to grapple, but now I've got to basically give you a list of names and have you memorize what each of these names are and how they interact and which moves they are. And God forbid you screw one of them up and you go for the wrong thing because you couldn't relate this unrelated name to a technique because it doesn't make any sense. And people are trying to memorize moves now and names. And it's just, I think it does more harm than good in the long run for athletes.
I think a good example of that is using the Japanese terms for certain leg locks and throws or takedowns and like arm bars and stuff. Like all these Japanese terms are just they make sense in that language. It's just like like outside foot trip, but in Japanese, and which again makes sense when you speak Japanese, but like when you don't, it's just I don't know why people use the Japanese terms. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But so it makes it just because I can't remember all these like Japanese terms or whatever, right? I can remember the English terms, and Japanese people I'm sure can remember the Japanese terms that they use. So I don't get why we're doing this weird thing. I think it's weird.